Sometimes I really hate saying it, but fuck me, I love Pokemon, and especially competitive Pokemon battling. I strongly dislike most turn-based RPGs as they all feel like the same thing over and over again and last way too long. But something about Pokemon I love, whether it be the cute Pokemon designs, the often campy and trope-filled but charming stories, the way you feel like you get attached to each individual monster through the admittedly ass-backwards grind for competitive Pokemon, or the characters you get to meet. And of course, I would be remiss not to mention the number one reason I love Pokemon so much: the little pocket monsters themselves. These fucking guys each have their own charm, and I don't think there's a single bad Pokemon. There's ones that are better than others, of course. For instance, I'm not exactly big on AVG Dad Keyboy or the two Pokemon that look like Banjo-Kazooie NPCs, but everyone is someone's favorite, and they all have their own charm. So if I love Pokemon so much, why exactly do I hate Sword and Shield? Yeah, I'm not big on Pokemon Sword and Shield. There's a few reasons. I mostly summed up my feelings over in my So Let's Talk About video about the game, so I won't get into it too much, but to summarize my feelings about it, I really like the Pokemon designs, Alchemy and Grookey especially. I like the concept of Pokemon battling being like a sporting event. It makes sense and is more similar to the way the anime portrays it, and I sincerely hope the game ends up being better than I currently think it's going to be. But at the same time, I don't really like how the graphics look. Not all Pokemon are being brought back. Yeah, I'm one of the bring back national dex types. Everyone's someone's favorite. Animations are non-existent, and when they are there, they are recycled from the 3DS. I don't like the recently revealed Pokemon camp and jobs in concept, and the wild area seems so limited needlessly. Like, honestly, I understand there's a large audience who wants an open world Pokemon game, but another faction who just wants the Pokemon formula. Don't try to do both. Breath of the Wild created an amazingly huge game, but because of it, the story, traditional Zelda stuff suffered. They didn't try to half-ass both, but rather let one be amazing and the other only be okay. Pokemon's trying to do a middle ground here, and I'm not sure if it's going to work for them, but anyways, that's not even my biggest gripe with the game. My biggest problem is this. This video is being made off the heels of the announcement of all those Gen 1 Gigantamax forms being announced, and well, I'm frustrated. Not because they were all Gen 1, not because this fucks over Persian, Raichu, and all the evolutions, not because this is yet another Charizard form, and one that kinda looks like fetish art to boot. But no, I was angry because of this. I always wanted a Mega Butterfree, and this Gigantamax Butterfree basically is a Mega Butterfree. It has the look, it has the feel. I love Butterfree, mainly because of that anime episode, but the thing about Butterfree is, it's kinda shit. At least competitively, which is where I get most of my Pokemon time. So seeing this made me angry, and it got me on this tangent. When it came out, everyone kinda hated Mega Evolution, but now that it's gone, people are really missing it. I have always loved Mega Evolution, regardless of how stupid it was in concept. So in order for me to set the record straight, this is why Mega Evolution was the best Pokemon gimmick. Alternatively titled, why Gigantamaxing just ain't doing it for me, bro. Every Pokemon generation, there was a change in combat mechanics, whether it be the addition of special attack and defense, or the simple addition of new moves or balancing PP. So, when it came to Gen 6, the Pokemon Company had a few things to do to sell people on the next generation. Flex those brand spanking new 3D graphics, add a mechanic the entire game would be focused around, add a challenge of sorts to NPCs, buff certain Pokemon majorly and make them worth using, and lastly, add some fuel to the merch machine. And well, Mega Evolution does all of this perfectly. Let's look at each one of these tasks and evaluate how Mega Evolution accomplishes these goals. The Megas themselves don't exactly flex the 3D graphics, but adding these new designs to a game that you can see details better with is a bonus. Adding a new mechanic they could focus the game around. They didn't have to do this, but at the same time, I think everyone thought this would be the new normal of battling. Think about it this way, the new graphics, the new standard of battling, this would be the new Pokemon, and Mega Evolution is a good way to chart progression. I always thought you dwell with the starter Pokemon's final form too much. Like, you spend the first, 7th of the game with the first evolution, the next 2 with the middle evolution, and then the majority of the game you roll with the final evolution. Staggering out a Mega Evolution to put somewhere in that area adds more variety, and less time doing the same thing over and over again. Pokemon X and Y had the common criticism of being too easy and mindless. But one, as a child who's an idiot, I had plenty of challenge playing this. And two, the way they attempted to add challenge to this game, essentially giving the NPCs a boss Pokemon as a last hurdle, is a lot more interesting than Gen 7's every battle has a guaranteed one-hit knockout happening in it. Even if it fails in creating an actual challenge, its attempted challenge is more interesting and dynamic than what came after it. I think it is no secret that a decent amount of the Mega Evolutions we got were there to act as a buff to few Pokemon who were less than favorable to use in normal battles. Off the top of my head, these guys needed the Mega, since Pokemon rarely ever buffs or nerfs Pokemon's individual stats. This was a good way to make some Pokemon better, and some Pokemon way too fucking good, or make some fight completely differently. And lastly, inspire a new line of merchandising for these new Pokemon designs. This is both a plus and a minus. The plus is, alongside Pokemon who needed balance changes, a lot of the most popular Pokemon were on the Mega hit list. Alongside the Gen 1 starters, we got mons like Gardevoir, Scizor, and Lucario. Like, a lot of people shit on Gen 1ers and Pokemon's catering to them, but two things. Gen 1 is the most popular for a reason. Most people's favorite Pokemon Gen is the first one they played. I love Hoenn and Kalos because they were my first 3 games and I got nostalgia. And secondly, Pokemon caters to Gen 1 because that's where people's favorites are. It's annoying for Charizard and Mewtwo to get 2 Megas over other Pokemon getting 1, and a lot getting none. But fucking Charizard and Mewtwo are 2 of the most popular Pokemon out of all 1,000 of these fucks. Plus, with Mega Evolution, the Gen 1 pandering wasn't nearly as bad as it ended up being. The minus of Megas being merchandised to hell and back is, well, the perception of Megas. Much like the newer games, when someone sees a new form of variation of Pikachu and Charizard, everyone is just sitting there being like, of course, they're gonna sell another 5 million Charizard cards. They don't cater to us true fans with obscure favorites. I think this is what killed the hype of Mega Evolution towards the beginning of X and Y announcements, as well as many people, myself included, thinking they just gave a 4th evolution to a ton of Pokemon. But hell, honestly, at this point, I wouldn't care if they just made Mawile's Mega a standard evolution to it at this point, just to make that thing even slightly viable since it's one of the ones confirming to return. Anyways, yes, Mega Evolution did just about everything it set out to do, and did so with flying colors. So with a mechanic that had a pretty good precedent in its first game, how did they handle it in the games past X and Y? They couldn't possibly fumble it. Well, they didn't exactly fumble it instantly. Pokemon has this habit of introducing mechanics or game modes that just kind of fall off right after the game they're introduced. Like Secret Bases in Ruby and Sapphire, and later the ORAS games, the underground stuff in Platinum, or triple and rotation battles. Credit where credit is due, however, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire took the concept of Megas and ran pretty good with it, dropping Megas on a ton of Gen 3 Pokemon, as well as a decent amount from the other gens as well. Ranging from, again, ones that needed a buff and ones that were decently popular, and a few what the fuck choices as well. And they actually used the introduction of Megas to change the stories of the old game a pretty decent amount too, through both the Delta episode and the Latios and Latios flying mechanic, which, let me tell you, it may have been pretty broken to have free travel like this, but goddamn it was convenient to fly to any route and have overworld events. More Pokemon games needed something like this. Alongside those actual changes, adding Mega Pokemon to established NPCs and ORAS was just Like, for those who were around when they showed the official artwork of the characters, and it was just like, oh, and then you finally fought them and it was like, fuck. ORAS handled the Mega Pokemon gracefully, and in a way I'd argue was a pretty substantial increase, but then came the next Pokemons in after Generation 6. Sun and Moon. Sun and Moon have a lot of issues. I don't think a single person could argue against the growing pains that game experienced. Whether it be the problems surrounding the game, like the entire Pokedex being leaked, or better yet, the entire game being leaked before its release, or the many game-centric criticisms that have plagued discussions about the game since its release, such as the implementation of Ultra Beasts, the story being lame, the trials leaving something to be desired, certain Pokemon being locked away until way too late, or evolved way too late for them to be useful in the main game. Like, seriously, why is Executor at the second to last island when it was probably the biggest thing to come from the marketing? And, of course, the staggered release of the lackluster Ultra games afterwards. And for me, the single-handed biggest downgrade from the last game is Archie and Maxie's remake designs being tossed out in favor of the classic designs for Rainbow Rocket. And, well, besides that, the way Megas were tossed aside in favor of Z-moves. Z-moves are their own can of worms and their own problems, but I really dislike them. Since most of them just act as a one-hit kill you can do once per battle, and the one that doesn't isn't really ever worth using. It's just there as cute fan service, and I think that's my biggest problem with most of these. They're either generic to their type one-hit kill button, or they're a fan service animation that loses its charm after the first few viewings one-hit kill button. You might be thinking, but RV, there was no loss of the Megas here, they're still in Sun and Moon. And you're technically both right and wrong. Megas are still in the game, but basically, they might as well not be. You see, the Mega Keystone was given to the player only in the post-game, and most Mega Stones are obtained in backwards-ass ways. These 5 you get pretty easily, but every other Mega Stone either gets in the game with a code, or you have to grind the battle tree for them. And the battle tree in Sun and Moon is not that fun. It's cool to see the NPCs from past games, but just the same thing over and over again. Of course it was annoying to have to re-find all the Mega Stones from X and Y again in Oros, but this is even worse. But then they couldn't possibly handle it worse than that, could they? Here is the thing. By all accounts, this is just the same mechanic as Mega Evolution from what I can tell. Sure, every Pokemon can grow big, but only some get new forms when they Gigantamax. And it checks all the same buttons as Mega Evolution. But instead of just using Mega Evolution again, they just tossed it out in favor of Mega Evolution but big, and that's what frustrates me the most. Not only that, but when a Pokemon is Mega Evolved, they lose their moveset in favor of more generic moves. Even more than that, these Pokemon don't feel like they're fan favorites as much as it feels like just Gen 1 Pokemon getting these new forms. Pikachu getting his 4th form in these past few games, and the abilities of these Gigantamax Pokemon don't really add anything special, and on top of everything else at this point in the series, it's now just a gimmick. When this was unveiled, it didn't feel like a gimmick, it felt like a whole new thing, but this is a gimmick. And it is a gimmick on top of a game that is not faring all that amazingly in my mind as it is. But that's just me. I love Pokemon, but I really don't think this one is gonna be a good one, guys. While I previously said I wasn't going to buy this game at launch, I have a feeling that I am gonna have to eat my hat on that one, just so I can follow the YouTube trends because I'm kind of Nintendo-centric as a YouTuber. But hey, what do you think of Pokemon Sword and Shield? Are you a cynical ass towards everything you don't like I am? Or are you more of an optimist and excited for a new game and ready to debate some of my points in the comments? Well, regardless of what you're feeling, please talk to me in the comments. As always, I've been RVRocks. If you like what you're seeing, like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. See ya!